Squidnova presents 30 Minutes of Diabolical, Volume 2, Session 8.
How you feeling about this track out of Finland?
That's bumping.
Well, if the atmosphere is bumping, then feel free to assume this is your 30 Minutes of Diabolical. And welcome to it. In this session, Team Diabolical stands at the end of the world and contemplates the loneliest number.
Spoiler, it's 1.
Next, as the despair of isolation sets in, we ponder what booty we'd bring back to the penthouse.
Time to pillage and plunder.
You're on fire right now. And finally, we scrutinize some cinematic portrayals of solitude and whose sanity we truly question.
Anybody else hear a phone ringing?
Man, as always, we welcome you into the Diabolical Penthouse, where electronic beats pop and beverages flow.
And of course, there's that razor wit that'll cut you.
Unforgettable. And of course, that brings us to the company, which is one Chuck Rendon. Chuck, how art thou?
You know, I'm good, man.
You look good.
Thank you, sir. Oh, I think I lost my mind for a minute there, but hey, I'm back.
Oh, it's the perfect session to do that.
Exactly.
And of course, I'm a nocturnal human that they call Curtis Aird.
Well, with that, I think our synchronization is complete. Let's say we get started.
We're already in full swing.
Yeah, we are.
Chuck, would you introduce the regal third member of Team Diabolical, as he is very important to the proceedings?
Well, as always, we are joined by King Night Owl himself. And, you know, anytime he speaks up, you can rest assured some serious knowledge was dropped for you on this session's show notes. So stay tuned for that.
Good call. As everybody gets comfortable in the penthouse, let's take inventory of, well, our beverages, as they'll keep this conversation lively. Chuck, there's a goblet over there filled with a very delightful beverage. Speak on it, please.
It's very delightful. Well, you know, since we're getting ready to talk about some isolation and perhaps some items of comfort, of course, I had to stretch to one of my favorite beverages. Brought it back, Jack Daniel's number 7. And for this conversation, though, I'm having it neat, which in my opinion is the only way to enjoy your whiskey.
This is kind of a throwback beverage for you. This is what you started drinking when we first came into the penthouse.
We'll see how the show goes. It might be where I end it, too.
You never know.
But, you know, with Jack at my side, I know this conversation's going to go smooth. It's going to be amazing. I'm intrigued, though. I'm seeing a yellow can of some sort over there. What do you got?
It is yellow. I gave myself some options tonight. Bought 2 beverages when I stopped. I leaned towards Arizona tonight. I needed some energy. Had a long weekend. But I'm feeling lively. The energy tonic has my back. It's a yellow can, Chuck.
Hey, man, it sounds like we have 2 great beverages once again. Cheers.
Cheers. Chuck, it's been a downright chaotic week for dope, really. Let's go ahead and share what's making our minds buzz. And let's go ahead and bring Divine into the penthouse.
Well, as this great music envelops me, my dope this week is a television show that just recently premiered on A&E.
I've not heard you reference that channel before.
With good reason. There hasn't been anything to reference. But this show has me intrigued. It's called The Returned.
Okay.
And essentially, it's just that it's about people who have died in some way, shape, or form, coming back to life years later in some cases, and having no memory of ever dying, and seeing how they sort of integrate back into their lives, which, you know, are completely different at this point now.
Sounds kind of like the 440 in a way.
Yeah, very similar. It's really similar to an ABC show that was called Resurrection.
All right.
Didn't last very long, with good reason.
Vague
honestly.
memories.
The story kind of fell apart, but so far The Returned has me hooked. It's 2 episodes in. It's really centered around this creepy kid.
Like a kind of a Damien vibe.
Very, very similar Damien vibe. So you're wondering what's going on with this kid, and so far we've been introduced to a handful of returned people. There's veiled references so far that they somehow know each other. or have encountered each other in their past lives, I guess you would call it. But the writing's been top-notch so far. It has my interest. And of note to us, Carlton Cuse from Lost fame is an executive producer.
He did duck a lot of the heat that came off of that fail at the end of Lost.
He did. So far, this show is getting pretty good reviews, so maybe success for him.
We see you, Annie.
Yeah. If nothing else, so definitely my dope this week.
Nice.
What do you have?
Well, my dope is bittersweet, really. I mean, no secret, I'm a huge fan of Tron. They just sort of announced, there's been no official announcement, but there's been a lot of rumor about Tron 3 starting to film in Vancouver later this year. I'm worried. I got to be honest. Disney has still not dropped word on what exactly is going on with Tron Uprising, which much of the fan base is still a little bit jilted over.
To say the least, yeah.
And I know you and I are awfully concerned about what the plot of the next movie. The plot could break the franchise if we're not careful.
Yeah, it's funny because on the surface, we should have been elated by this announcement. Hey,
Agreed.
Tron 3 is coming, right? No. I was very apprehensive, and even the Nerdist released a video, which they're probably the most credible source I've seen so far because Disney hasn't said anything, of course.
True.
And they alluded to the fact that this new film might bring elements of the grid into the real world, and
don't do that.
You've already lost me if that's the case.
Look, the grid belongs in a computer. That's it. That's it.
I mean, Tron without the grid is not Tron.
No, and you can have I'd forgive a dream sequence where Korra never got out of the grid. That'd be fine with me.
Please, let's find a way to retcon that.
Super Mario 2 it. It would be fine with that.
Nice.
So that's my dope. Bittersweet, but I'll take it.
Oh, there you go, man. Totally dope.
As stated, kind of a crazy week for entertainment. We mentioned the Tron, we mentioned The Returned, but another show really blindsided us and really the whole world.
Yeah, to say the least, man. And it's funny because seeing a couple trailers leading up to the premiere of the show, based on who was involved, I knew it was going to be funny, but I had no idea like the level, the type of story they were planning to tell.
That, and you don't get a sense of what the show is going to be.
Right.
And 3 episodes in, essentially, it's basically a character study with window dressing of the apocalypse.
Yes.
Starring, Will Forte, who, I got to ask this question right off the top. He is rocking maybe the strongest beard on TV right now. Chuck, do you have any beards to counter that?
I feel like there should be quite a few but the only one that's really popping in my mind is the, I guess at this point, the long lost beard of Rick Grimes from The Walking Dead.
Well, he's a domestic man now.
Well, that's what they're trying to have you believe, but
he might have had the most intimidating beard on TV.
Oh, easily. I mean, you just expected to find like chunks of zombie in that beard, or
Well, his eyes behind that beard were just intimidating, man.
Piercing, man.
Now he seems a little more human, cleanly shaven.
I can tell you have a beard on your brain there.
Well, I mean, I'm racking my brain too. I mean, Will Forte's beard just makes everything fade away, but I would say maybe a Jedi beard. Speculative. Ooh. Mark Hamill from episode 7. Okay. He's gonna have a beard.
Oh,
he has to. He's a Jedi.
Yeah.
So that's a possible beard to rival.
It's a good call.
And of course, the only other person in the show to date. Well, I guess we have another actress that came in right at the end. But let's just say you're not caught up with the show at this point. We won't drop any spoilers on you.
Yes. Well, as the show would have us to believe, the last woman on Earth was played by Kristen Schaal, if I'm saying that correctly. But
quite possibly. I've not heard it spoken. She is kind of an indie comedy star.
Right.
Her strengths are obviously the awkwardness she can bring to TV.
Yes. Her, just the looks that she can do with her facial expressions.
Right.
It's gold. So far, it's been gold on the show.
And I believe they're airing all 3 episodes this weekend. If you've not caught them yet, this is the one show that you should lay eyes on this year.
Yeah, I have to say, it's very easy to approach the show thinking, okay, it's just about this apocalyptic wasteland. Been there, done that. But that's really not even what the show's about, honestly. It's so far, it's just been a very intriguing character study,
well,
if you can say.
I found this interesting that this was the first show where the writers from Last Man on Earth actually have a verified account unto themselves. So now you can at people about plot development.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Well, that caught me by surprise because have you ever seen that before?
I've never seen a group of writers collectively have
And the fact that it's verified, you know you're not just shooting it into the darkness. So that right there might be the next evolution in accessibility as far as TV writing goes. I mean, we can watch an episode that drops later tonight and be like, yeah, you guys did the right thing here. Or, your opinion, obviously.
Right. Well, can we just speak on, though, just the brilliance here, Will Forte and Kristen Schaal.
There you go.
They literally carry this show. I mean, it's just them. They have to play off of each other.
Well, after the first hour, and I don't know how long the season is, to be honest, you wanted to give them the Emmy right off the bat, did you not?
Oh, yeah. Especially, even Will Forte in the first 2 episodes, really. He carries it, and I think he does a couple things we probably all would do faced in the same situation. Of course, I'm talking about the margarita pool, which...
Well, that's now a staple in comedy.
You can't go wrong with a margarita pool.
We're not giving away any plot points. Last Man on Earth, obviously. He's
Right.
out there trolling, trying to find people.
The first episode, it's really focused on him going out and collecting sort of this booty, I guess you would call it.
Well, he's looking for people that are alive, etc.
Yeah. I gotta say, though, it really got me thinking that if one of us were presented as the last man on Earth, what type of booty would we go after?
I will say that, of course, Will Forte in his Winnebago or RV, whichever he's driving, I did see a stormtrooper helmet.
Yes.
And that kind of led me, I think if I was the last man on Earth, I think you'd see me head north. I mean, obviously, it's really green up there, and the Skywalker Ranch is up there.
And let's talk about that for 1 second. It's interesting to me that of all the places on the planet, that if you're the last person on Earth you would settle in is the desert.
Right.
That's an interesting call.
Well, I think from a practical standpoint, they probably have longer hours where they can film where nobody's out. I mean, let's assume it's some...
Well, yeah, I get the production stuff. I'm just talking more like storyline-wise. Like, if I'm that character, why would I choose the desert of all places to uproot myself?
I only have production explanations for that.
Right?
Well, what about you? I mean, which direction? Obviously, we can't pilot planes, etc. So on the continental United States, where do you find yourself landing?
Well, I think mainly because, we're in hot and humid Southern California.
As of this week, yeah.
I would probably head somewhere like in the Northwest, like maybe like a Washington or someplace where it rains a lot. It's pretty green, and I'm not going to get sunburn all the time. So.
I like that. I think where Cujo would land, honestly, I would probably head towards our brothers and sisters to the south. I mean, Mexico is a beautiful place. Given the last man on Earth, those beaches are looking pretty good. But I've kind of sidetracked us. I obviously would hit Skywalker Ranch, pick up some Star Wars paraphernalia.
That's a good one.
Chuck, where are you ransacking?
Well, I think, I would probably pay a visit to Skywalker Ranch as well.
Got to.
But...
just in case there's some unreleased footage, maybe?
Yeah. But for me, too, though, in addition to the Star Wars stuff, obviously, if I'm the last man on Earth, I'm going to be out there searching for all these relics. So I am, of course, going to have to don the guise of the world's most famous archaeologist, and I will grab the Indiana Jones fedora and bullwhip.
Are you going to go after the Ark of the Covenant? Is that what we're talking about?
Just as long as I keep my eyes closed.
Nice. I like it. We're getting close to our interlude, but Twitter was generous enough to throw us a couple ponderous questions.
Always love those.
We got at Callum Petch. He brings up an interesting point. The last man on Earth is going to collapse at some point, but now it's pretty goddamn brilliant. He dropped the GD, not me.
It deserves it.
Sure. Do you agree with that tweet? Do you feel like it's going to kind of break down plot-wise? I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's a very intriguing question, and honestly, I guess to play it political, it really could go both ways, but I do like the fact that, the introduction of the last woman on Earth, and then, as people will find out in later episodes, the introduction of another character, I think they have an interesting storyline playing out here.
I do too.
So I think there's the potential for that to carry on for a bit, because again, we're not talking about just this apocalyptic wasteland, which that, I think would only be dragged out for so long.
I don't see Will Fort's character becoming, well, Rick Grimes and hunting people down. This is a comedy.
Sure.
Very awkward. I mean, two of the most awkward scenes back to back that you'll probably ever lay eyes on in the opener.
Right.
So that brings us to a second tweet at Kelly Laugh. She must be funny.
There you go.
She was kind of mind blown at the amazing music design of the show. Now, I did think that set the show apart because the music choices are kind of indie pop. What was your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was definitely not the type of music you would have expected going into the show, especially being a comedy and everything. But I liked it. I mean, personally, I thought the music went pretty well with the environment.
Well, like you said, it takes place out in the desert, which you can thematically say, well, Breaking Bad's out in the desert or in the Southwest.
Sure.
But with that music, you have your own personality for a show. And that's what all shows are kind of chasing to differentiate themselves. So I agree with Kelly, who laughs apparently.
Yeah.
Great point to bring out.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think music really makes any show or film for that matter elevated.
It definitely boosts this show as we're about to take an interlude.
There you go.
Before we take an interlude with Haven out of Stockholm, how's that beverage over there treating you right now? Are you a buzz?
I'm feeling pretty good, man. Jack never does me wrong.
Nice.
How's that Arizona treating you?
Arizona rarely does anybody wrong, and this is no exception. Feeling good. So let's go ahead and take an interlude with Haven, a beautiful track. On the other side, we'll discuss, well, some cinematic portrayals of solitude that resonate with Team Diabolical. Join us. Track, vocals by JoJo, beats by Haven. How you feeling about it?
That was pretty darn awesome, man.
I'm moved.
Put me in the mood, that's for sure.
What mood might that be? I'm frightened. Chuck, we have maybe one emotion that everyone can relate to, and that is loneliness and or solitude. Obviously, sci-fi and some movies that are adventure fiction have portrayed this. Whether you're marooned on a planet or lost at sea, actors each give their own way of how they deal, how they present,
right?
How you might lose your sanity if you were isolated.
And as an actor, I would imagine a project like this could be pretty intimidating.
It could blow up in your face.
You're literally carrying the project. So if it doesn't work, it's you, right?
Agreed. And of course, there's no shortage of material, so you want to just give a rundown of our thoughts, maybe actors that have done it well, some that maybe not so much?
Yeah, I think much like last session when we were talking to sharks, and of course we had to start with Jaws. I think in this case you have to talk about. There's a book. It's called I Am Legend.
Okay,
Came
I'm
out
with you.
in the mid '50s. It's by Richard Matheson.
Oh, classic literary name drop. Nicely done.
That's how we do it. But this book spawned 3 different films.
That it did.
We'll talk about 2 of them briefly. One, I think we'll go a little bit more in depth. Briefly, though, I want to touch on The Last Man on Earth, which came out in 1964, actually.
That's a few years before we were on the surface.
Yeah, it didn't really get much acclaim, but it did star Vincent Price, who, if you're familiar with the I Am Legend movie with Will Smith, it's the same type of story here. You know, we had mutated humans who were almost like zombies/vampires. So you had Vincent Price kind of taking these guys out throughout the film.
Right.
Effects were pretty cheesy.
That's his wheelhouse. I mean, Vincent Price is a name that not everybody's aware of at this point. He was like a creepy Walt Disney back in the day.
He really was. And it's funny because that's exactly right. I mean, he dressed very similar to Walt Disney. But that guy just had a legendary voice, man.
He did.
And the only reason I really bring this film up is just being able to listen to Vincent Price go into some monologues throughout the film. That in itself is worth the price of admission, for as far as I'm concerned.
I see King Night Owl over there trying to dig one of those up right now.
And then the other one, of course, I Am Legend, which we talked about. Will Smith.
That movie had a nice opening act. There were some visuals. I believe he was playing golf off of maybe an aircraft carrier or something. Yeah,
there was a couple decent things they did right. For me, though, what took me out was just I felt the vampires or the creatures were just almost too gruesome. I couldn't buy the fact that these were mutated humans.
Yeah, I don't have much to say about Will Smith's performance. I mean, when you have Will Smith on a production, you're paying for Will Smith. You're not paying for great acting. Now, he probably does have some awards under his arm, but I mean that's just you're getting Will Smith.
Well, I think After Earth, his stocks probably dropped a little bit here. But let's move on.
Yeah, sure.
Omega Man is really the film I want to center on here that was based around the I Am Legend book.
You just wanted to talk about Charlton Heston, and I don't blame you.
Anytime we can bring Heston into the Penthouse, it's going to be a welcomed visit. But Omega Man, same story, but this one, they kind of tweaked it a little bit. They had the mutated zombies. They were called the Family, and they were kind of almost like dark-skinned humans. I mean, they really acted...
It was a bizarre film.
Yeah. And it, came out in the early 70s. So, of course, the Family, it was a take on the Charles Manson family, that whole cult type
commentary.
environment.
You know Heston's going to throw some commentary at you.
Absolutely. But the first half of the film, you see Heston just running around. He has, of course, this like epic kind of billowing blouse as he's wearing.
Nice.
And you just see him like taking his machine gun and shooting down mutants.
When I watched that, it's been since college since I've laid eyes on it. There was some really poor editing at some points. So the budget was probably...
It was a lower budget.
Yeah.
It was early sci-fi. So,
Did he ever crack from loneliness? I don't recall.
There was he started cracking a bit. There was a scene, if you recall, where he thinks he's hearing a payphone ringing.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And he stops himself. There is no phone ringing. There is no phone, because he's going crazy with just, there's no sounds, and he just needs like that familiar.
Well, Will Forte definitely flexes those kind of moments in that pilot.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite things too is in how Will Forte in Last Man Standing brings in the friends as sports balls.
Okay, well, should we bounce to
which is a
Castaway?
Perfect segue to Castaway.
Right.
And I loved it because he's watching Castaway, which, of course, perfect, right?
Meta.
And he's like, I would never like make a ball a friend or whatever.
Well, anytime you hear somebody completely deny something,
right,
and then there's a smash cut, they're going to be doing exactly that thing. And you expect it, except for he kills it.
He does.
There's like 15 different kinds of balls.
Well, and that was just an epic scene where he's in the bar and he's just asking, who wants some tequila.
Awesome.
And you just see like 15 or 20 different balls he flashes to. And it's great.
There's a shuttlecock too, isn't there?
There is.
Oh my God.
It's epic.
Kudos to the writers. Amazing.
It's good stuff. But Castaway, let's talk about that.
Well, that's probably the greatest isolation performance, I suspect.
I would agree, man. And Tom Hanks, I think as you're watching this film, it's hard to appreciate as, if you're the actor in this scenario, you have nobody to play off of but yourself.
Right.
That's a tough thing to do, man.
Yeah, I mean, when you're kind of like trapped in paradise with no one else,
Right.
that is a crazy juxtaposition. And
It
you
is.
got coconuts. I mean, you're living off of, he goes from having a toothache to, I mean, every moment you feel. It's crazy.
Well, and you can just feel with him that first moment where he finally like spears a fish and,
That's right.
he celebrates, and
It's the little things.
it's the little things. Absolutely. And kudos to Tom Hanks, though. I think there's a lot of actors I feel probably would not have done this film, because if you think about it, if this film doesn't do well, the box office, there's no one to blame for that scenario but the leading actor.
Well,
right?
Hanks is such an institution in America that if his name is on a project, it's already worth $100 million. It's kind of bizarre that I think he just recently, this is a side note and a slight tangent, he just filed for divorce, and that was more jarring than a personal friend.
Yeah.
Because you're like, this guy is so steady.
Yes.
How can anything be amiss?
Well, yeah, and we'll get.
Yeah.
We're
that's
getting
beside
off
the
on a
point.
tangent,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Crazy. I think when I'm recalling isolation, I'm gonna bring The Stand, the miniseries,
Ooh, okay.
into it's kind of a different kind of isolation, but I thought that a lot of the actors carried it well. There were some names in that project. If you've not seen the Stand miniseries, wait for a little bit. The movie will be out shortly.
Well, yeah. Well, I think this thing made Gary Sinise a star, right?
Oh, that could be. He's kind of been a sleeper. People respect Gary Sinise.
Yeah.
Whatever he does.
Well, he has a presence about him.
He does. I mean, there's kind of a believability everyman
Right.
thing going on. The one performance that comes to mind from that series is one of the characters is trapped in New York City.
Okay.
And you just see that, like, after the city is dead, even going through a tunnel that's populated by corpses, that's a challenge. Now, obviously, Last Man on Earth, it's a comedy, so they're not going to throw any rotting corpses at you.
Sure.
But that portrayal obviously resonates as it's coming out of my mouth right now.
That's a good call. And I have to say, of all of the Stephen King television adaptations, The Stand was really well done, at least in my opinion.
I am interested to see how they do the movies. I think they're going to turn them into a trilogy as they do with everything.
Right. There's definitely enough source material for it,
yeah.
that's for sure.
Well, if you've never read the book, if you happen to see it on a used bookshelf, do they still have books out there, Chuck? I don't know.
I believe so, yeah.
The unabridged is something to read.
Yes. It's definitely worth your time. It's a great read, for sure.
That's definitely a hoot right there. Chuck, what else you got? I just dropped a sci-fi on you.
All right. Well, you knew I was going to sneak in an animated film here.
You were.
But
I knew it.
I got to give it up to WALL-E, because when I think isolation, I mean,
Damn good pick.
the first half of this film is just WALL-E as he's cleaning up, the trash on the evacuated Earth.
Well, in that movie, just kind of like Last Man on Earth, it sets a table, it slows the pacing down. I mean, you really feel excited for these characters when they run across somebody.
Right. And it was an interesting gamble with a film like this, because
True.
really the first half of the film, there's no dialogue. It's really just some sound effects and WALL-E, the robot.
Credit to Pixar for making you fall in love with a little robot. I mean, we do
right.
love robots, everybody does. But that thing had to carry a movie for about 45 minutes.
It did. And, unlike a Tom Hanks, I mean, there's no like facial expressions, no talking much.
His
really.
optics basically adjust.
Exactly.
That's it.
So you have to convey emotion through, these robotic parts. And
I like that
succeeded.
pick. Nice.
Yeah. And visually too, I might add, a lot of great, especially when you see WALL-E kind of floating through space. Some interesting visuals.
That movie's going to age incredibly well, because the commentary in that movie as well
Oh.
is wow.
Well, it's funny. That takes us back actually to our very first session here in the Penthouse when we were talking virtual reality.
I'm scared to listen to that again. This show's come a long way.
Oh, brother. Indeed it has. But how about you? Do you have one last pick for a isolation film?
Oh, this is my final pick. I'm going to have to make it a two-headed monster. Life of Pi, some staggering visuals.
Ooh, okay.
Not necessarily isolation, but the guy does lose it a little bit because of, you can only talk to a cat for so long.
Right.
Great flick visually. The other film I'm going to reference is yet another sci-fi, which, to be honest, I've not seen for probably about 15 years, and that is Enemy Mine.
Ooh.
With Dennis Quaid, actually.
Oh, brother, another film I didn't think we'd ever talk about here.
Well, now that I've said it, I have to download it and watch it. But for anybody who has not laid eyes on, basically a human and an alien that are at battle, I think, down each other's ships on an isolated planet.
Right.
And essentially they have to band together to survive.
Oh, man.
So that's full of commentary as well as oftentimes people in opposite trenches.
It is, man.
Become friends.
Wow. That's a good pick, man. You kind of lit my mind up a little bit with that one.
Esoteric, but I think you're going to throw something at me that
when
will
you're
rival
speaking,
it.
Esoteric. And I bring this movie up not so much because it's a great movie.
I'm a little anxious right now.
But more because it was just entertaining. The concept was entertaining.
Please.
There's a movie that came out in 1984. It was called Night of the Comet.
Oh, I was going to reference that, dude.
It centers around these two sort of valley girls and what they decide to do as some of the last people on Earth. So, of course, there's a scene where they just raid the mall. Just this craziness ensues. But it's just an interesting question to pose that, hey, we've had films that deals with these like strong male leads, or here's a film that what would happen, if two like cheerleader types were the last people on Earth.
Right. And I got to think we're probably not too far away from somebody turning that into a TV show.
It's ripe for under the right hands. It actually could be pretty well done.
They weren't exactly zombies. It was a bunch of kind of deranged individuals with sunglasses on. Right. There was a lot of intriguing things about that movie.
There was. I mean, of course, you had your standard 80s cheese factor going on here. But
yes.
Underneath all of that, it was actually an intriguing story. And if you watch the trailer, it sets it up nicely. I mean, it pretty much, if the world was only populated by a handful of teenagers, what would that look like?
Yeah, and I mean, you'll never look at a pile of red dust the same way either. So,
good call, man. So that's definitely my esoteric pick. If you haven't seen the film, I'm not urging you to do so, but it will certainly be some good times.
Let me shoehorn in one more, and for good reason.
All right, bring it on.
You have to say 2001 Kubrick.
Oh, man. The shoe's been dropped, man. Nice.
But the guy that's trapped in the monolith.
That's such a great call, and shame on us that wasn't immediately
I almost forgot
into our minds.
But you do see kind of like that guy eating alone in the monolith. He's been alone for a long time.
That's a great call,
probably.
Yeah. I mean, that's it's perfect pick, man.
Well, just replaying that scene very briefly, it's all in the eyes. I mean, obviously you have the psychedelics, but you can tell that guy's completely lost in time and space, and
sure,
nothing's more lonely than that.
Well, and you can only imagine too, like how many takes like Kubrick went into that, because he's notorious for.
He's probably like, "Don't blink, can't blink." Oh my goodness,
which is great. He probably literally drove the guy insane, and to capture the.
Oh yeah, if he's
emotion.
consistent with his other films, yeah,
exactly.
Kubrick's in the house, brother.
Oh gosh, of course we had to end it on Kubrick, man. We wouldn't be us if we didn't.
So a session about isolation, a feeling that we're all in touch with to a degree.
I think we've all had moments in our life where we felt kind of isolated, or that loneliness kind of crept in a bit. So I think we can all certainly
not to the extreme of Last Man on Earth, but
right.
We're gonna watch The Last Man on Earth without blinking. That's for sure.
It certainly has my attention, man.
Word.
I'm digging it.
Feels like the right time to decompress to a track by Willits. Chuck, your diabolical takeaway from a session where you've been isolated.
Well, Kubrick aside, because I'm still kind of buzzing on that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just going to kick it back to Night of the Comet. Mainly because, The Gods Must Be Crazy in the last session. Here's another film that I just didn't think would ever grace the Penthouse, and found a way to bring it in.
Well, I don't know how long the session's going to run, but we found some 80s gold in our minds tonight.
Wait, let's be honest though. That's every session, man. The 80s inevitably creeps into the Penthouse.
Is there an 80s podcast? Maybe we should just adjust our name.
Diabolical 80s.
I like it.
What's your takeaway?
I'm going to go with what you mentioned about Wall-E, because it's a film which, the first time I watched it, I did not have the discerning mind that I do now. Now, that was a few short years ago, so I don't know what that says.
Nice.
But it is an incredible flick, and I will watch it again this week.
Well, I will say this, Pixar at that point in time was riding such a high. Every film kind of topped the previous. And here was one, when I saw the preview to WALL-E, I was like, okay, well, this is probably where it ends, because how are they going to make a whole movie about this robot? But they did it, man. And it was such a great film.
That's the brilliance of great writing, that it will take you out of your world and place you in another world. And that is great writing. It has to be.
WALL-E's the perfect example, man. You give a good story, people are going to come.
Well, WALL-E probably has a Twitter account. I don't know what it is. But I do know what my Twitter account is. That would be @86Cujo. If you feel isolated, there's no need. Hit me up with a tweet.
There you go.
Chuck, please drop some personal knowledge.
Hey, well, you can reach me at Romba on Twitter, and night or day, I am ecstatic to take part in your conversation, so tweet me away.
Chuck, are we ever going to sleep in this lifetime again?
Hey, man, we're a couple night owls for a reason, right?
Indeed.
And if you enjoyed what you heard in this session...
People famously love being isolated.
That they do. There's a very easy way to let us know. If you have access to iTunes, we would appreciate your iTunes review. It's how we can better suit the show to your tastes, and of course, we'd love to hear from you.
Save a life. Leave a review.
Here you go. And of course, you can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and other various platforms at this point.
Oh, at this juncture, SoundCloud is bae. You know that.
Quick search for 30 Minutes of Diabolical. You got us. Hit the subscribe button. Become one with Team Diabolical.
That's a beautiful gesture.
It is. It's the equivalent of a digital high five.
We'll keep that alive.
We will. For all those hoots you heard from King Night Owl, make your way over to Diabolical30.com under Volume 2, Session 8.
Can't believe it.
You'll find the show notes, read them, level up.
Chuck, I believe it's time to elevate the talent.
One of my favorite moments in a session.
You got to recognize who make us sound amazing.
There you go. Not an easy task.
No.
I might add. But we got things kicked off with Agile, who comes to us from Finland.
I believe you called that track Bumpin', and I have to agree. Nicely done.
Yeah, great
Some
music.
Finnish electronic music.
Great way to kick things off.
Indeed.
Next, we went on an interlude with Haven from Stockholm, Sweden.
We played a couple minutes of that track. Hunt that track down. It'll change your week.
That's a great song, and I know Haven says that he just wants to make people feel something. That song did it.
Yeah, mission accomplished.
And of course, we're decompressing to Willats out of Norway and his song Dreams.
I love Norway electronic music, so...
Well, and I have to say that Willats has been delivering beats and bars since the glory days of rap. So
He's
you
in
gotta
the
appreciate
trenches.
that.
Yeah.
He is.
Nice.
So we see you, man. Great music. Happy to feature you.
And we have some Diabolical cover art, which captures Last Man on Earth perfectly as he's playing Jenga on a ladder.
The Jenga Tower, man.
Chuck, will you do the heavy lifting on this international name for us?
Well, we're featuring Osama Agozom out of Morocco.
I would applaud, if it didn't mess up the audio.
We'll self-high-five then.
There you go.
But what a dynamic piece of art, man. Perfectly captures the theme and just kind of that snarkiness of Last Man Standing.
It is, and there's some nice colors at play as well.
Very true. Very serene. I think on that note, we are coming to an end here in our time in the Diabolical Penthouse.
The isolation is over.
As always, it's been a pleasure to spend 30 plus Diabolical minutes with you.
Best Diabolical minutes of the week. Arizona carried me through. Cheers.
And of course, I got to send out a digital cheers to the folks. Jack Daniels, always a favorite, the Diabolical Penthouse. So
Word.
on that note, we will catch you next time. Just like blinked. Kind of worked though. I went a little insane there for a minute. And